This man's name is Alan. He works as a negotiator at the Mexican police office. His extraordinary psychological abilities always make him successful in completing hostage release negotiation missions. That morning, Alan took his wife, Victoria, who is also a psychologist, to her workplace and her child to swimming lessons. However, while on the way, Alan received a call from his boss to immediately come to the scene of the crime, because there was a case of a mother being held hostage by her son-in-law. Without thinking, Alan immediately stepped on the gas towards the crime scene, even though his wife scolded him for not taking her to the office. Alan's priority was to help the mother who was being held hostage as quickly as possible. After arriving at the crime scene, Alan immediately approached his commander and listened to his explanation of the situation. Relaxed, Alan began working and tried to negotiate with the son-in-law who was holding his mother-in-law hostage. Thanks to Alan's extraordinary negotiation skills, the son-in-law finally gave in and surrendered. The hostage case was successfully resolved. That evening, Alan returned home and was immediately scolded by his wife. With emotion, Victoria told the story of what happened to her after Alan left the crime scene. Due to severe traffic jams, Victoria did not take their child to swimming lessons and decided to take her child to her workplace. However, at the office, Victoria was scolded by her boss for being caught bringing a small child to work, even threatened with being fired. Victoria was very disgusted because she felt that Alan always prioritized work over family. Victoria suggested that they both go to a psychologist to fix their relationship. That night, Victoria made Alan sleep on the sofa as a sign of her anger. The next morning in the kitchen, Alan saw Victoria joking with her new gym instructor. To prevent an affair, Alan decided to accompany Victoria. That afternoon, Alan complied with his wife's request to go to a psychologist. Meanwhile, the Mexican president was seen on the phone with his mistress, inviting them to meet at the apartment. However, when the president arrived at the apartment and opened the door, he was suddenly held at gunpoint and held hostage. That afternoon, Alan and Victoria consulted a psychologist. However, instead of correcting themselves, they blamed each other and got angry. Victoria told all her feelings about how she felt ignored by Alan. Suddenly, Alan received a call from the kidnapper of the Mexican president. The kidnapper informed him that the president was being held hostage in one of the apartment rooms. Alan quickly left the counseling session to handle the case. After Alan leaves, Victoria receives a call from her frightened gym instructor, who begs her to come to his apartment to help solve the problem. A worried Victoria immediately heads to the address given. However, when she arrives at the apartment, Victoria is held at gunpoint, and it turns out that the apartment is where the president is being held hostage. Her gym instructor is also one of the hostages, and the two are put in the same room as the president and his mistress. Now there are 4 people being held hostage, namely the president and his mistress, the gym instructor, and Victoria. Meanwhile, Alan has reported the kidnapper's call to a special police team, and they immediately move to handle the situation. To avoid panic, police disguised as firefighters begin evacuating people in the apartment. After everyone is evacuated, Alan's assistant named Menendez and several other police officers are on guard in the room directly below the room where the president is being held hostage. Menendez, who was idly eating candy he found in that place, did not realize that the candy was actually marijuana candy. In the basement of the apartment, Alan and his team installed equipment to monitor the situation. Shortly after, the kidnapper made a video call using a sheep mask. He showed that Victoria was also being held hostage and asked the government to transfer 30 million pesos, or around $540,000, to a small hospital. He also mentioned the account number and address. Seeing his wife being kidnapped, Alan panicked and wondered how Victoria could be there. Alan then reported to 3 government officials to ask them to fulfill the kidnapper's request. At first, the higher-ups are hesitant and don't want to give in too easily to the criminal's demands. However, Alan convinces them that he is a great negotiator and promises to free the president. Hearing Alan's statement, the higher-ups were willing to follow the kidnapper's wishes. In the apartment, the kidnapper attaches an electric shock device to the president's thigh while playing the president's campaign video. The kidnapper then gives the president an electric remote and tells him to shock himself every time a campaign promise is broken. The president looks resigned and helpless. Meanwhile, in the apartment basement, Alan waits for the situation to develop. After the money is transferred, Alan contacts the kidnapper to ask for his wife to be released. Seeing a woman come out of the apartment, Alan, who thought his wife was free, feels relieved. However, it turns out that the woman is the president's mistress. Casually, the kidnapper tells Alan that he will release Victoria as long as the government is willing to transfer another 30 million pesos to a school with the address and account number mentioned. Before the call is hung up, the kidnapper suddenly calls Alan Little Wing. Hearing the call, Alan feels weak because now he knows who the kidnapper is. The kidnapper turns out to be his own best friend named Vicente. Alan then tells his commander that he and Vicente used to work together in the Special Police Division for combating terrorism. Vicente is a sniper, while Alan is the negotiator. One day, there was a school bus hostage case that ended tragically. Alan tried to negotiate but failed. Vicente, who was impatient, took action himself and shot the terrorist. However, when shot, the terrorist reflexively pressed the bomb he was carrying so that all the students on the bus died. Vicente was later fired and imprisoned for the incident. After the story of one of the staff showed a video post of Vicente with his wife on social media 2 years ago. In the video, Vicente complained about the government that deactivated the free health card for his wife who had cancer, just for the reason of saving the state budget. It turned out that Vicente's wife had died after not being able to get adequate treatment. The hospital that previously received money from the government was the hospital where his wife was being treated. Alan felt very touched and speechless after knowing that his friend's life was very miserable. Alan then contacted Vicente and apologized for what had happened. If they had met earlier, he would have built his treatment. Alan hoped that Vicente would stop this hostage-taking, but Vicente refused. Vicente instead asked Alan to bring an honesty test kit or polygraph as soon as possible. Alan told the latest conditions to 3 government officials as negotiators. He suggested fulfilling Vicente's request for the safety of the hostages. However, the officials replied that they were willing to transfer money to the school, but refused to provide a polygraph. For a political official like the president, the honesty test tool is considered dangerous because it can reveal lies that have been done so far, thus damaging his reputation in the eyes of the public. Alan felt frustrated because the top brass made the negotiation process difficult. In the midst of despair, Alan's daughter called and asked when her father and mother would come home. Hearing his daughter's little voice, Alan couldn't hold back his tears. He couldn't imagine how sad his son's face would be if Victoria became a victim. After hanging up the phone, Alan made a desperate decision. Secretly, he took a polygraph from his commander's car and put it in a pizza box. Then, he asked one of the staff to send it to the hostage location without telling the higher-ups. On the other hand, in the room, a frightened Victoria asked the instructor to help her beg Vicente. However, suddenly the instructor stood up and untied himself with a sly smile. He revealed that all this time he had only pretended to be an instructor to spy on Alan. Not long after, the polygraph arrived and Vicente installed it on the president. The instructor was tasked with recording the interrogation process. After the camera was turned on, Vicente began asking about the corruption that the president had committed. If the president was lying, the polygraph would sound.
Para que hablara con tu perro muerto.
Lo repartí, hay que engrasar el sistema.
¿Cuándo fue la última vez que viajaste en
50 millones.
de grande?
Presidente.
A la chingada.
A few minutes later, Vicente freed the second hostage, the instructor. When Alan asked about what happened inside, the instructor claimed to know nothing because he said he was locked in the bathroom. Alan protested to Vicente because his wife should have been released. In the middle of the conversation, Alan asked to talk to his wife for a moment. While talking, Victoria only told him to take care of his uncle. Alan was confused because he knew that Victoria's uncle had died. At that moment, Alan realized that the sentence was a code. Immediately, Alan told his commander about the code. The commander immediately drugged the instructor and searched him to find out what really happened. There was a memory card containing a video recording of the president's confession. The commander and Alan were sure that the instructor was Vicente's accomplice, who was deliberately removed so that he could post the video recording on social media. When watching the video, they were shocked to hear the president admit that 3 high-ranking officials were involved in all of his corruption cases. Now it is clear why the 3 high-ranking officials did not want to give the honesty detector. They were afraid that their corruption would be exposed. In the middle of the conversation, Alan saw the 3 high-ranking officials come and ordered the special team to prepare in their respective positions to attack Vicente. Alan felt that their plan was dangerous, so he secretly sneaked into the apartment. In front of the room, Alan contacted Vicente and told him the plan of the high-ranking officials. He also told him that he had seen the recording of the president's confession. Alan promised to upload the video as long as he and Victoria could switch places. Hearing the agreement, Vicente agreed and opened the door. Before leaving, Alan gives Vicente the memory card and asks Victoria to keep it safe so that it is not damaged or lost. On the other hand, The higher-ups are seen counting down to start the ambush.
Ojalá siga adentro.
Tranquilo. 55, 37, 38, 35, 37.
In the midst of the tension, Menendez, who was still snacking on marijuana candy, casually spoke through the building's speaker, informing that Alan was now in the room again to negotiate with Vicente. Menendez suggested that there was no need to bother using violence, just relax while waiting for Alan. After a warm negotiation between the two old friends, Vicente felt that his goal of taking revenge on the president had been achieved. With a relieved heart, Vicente finally agreed to surrender. 4 months later in prison, a video of the president's confession of corruption went viral on the internet and was covered on TV news. Alan managed to upload the video secretly so that the public was excited and held a large demonstration demanding that the president be tried. The news also showed that the person who recorded the video was Vicente. All the prisoners who watched the news immediately cheered and paid tribute to Vicente as a national hero. One year has passed. Alan and his wife are now motivators at a seminar. After Vicente was arrested, Alan decided to quit being a police negotiator and start a new career so that he could always be with his wife. After the seminar was over, Alan received a call from Vicente, who was still in prison. Vicente informed him that he only had 6 months left in his sentence, and that his name as a hero who dared to expose the corruption of politicians was now very famous. Vicente planned to run for president after his release and offered Alan to help him hunt corruptors if he was elected. Hearing the offer, Alan smiled and replied, "Okay, my friend." Don't forget to like and subscribe to the Amri Film channel so you don't miss the next movie recaps.